Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Today we're doing the part two of our little mini series here that we started a few weeks ago, covering the steps on creating winning estimates, winning electrical estimates. So we'll just kind of jump right into it today. Just wanted to mention you can ask questions on the chat box on the right. You have to be logged in, but just with your Google or Gmail or YouTube account. So ask questions and we'll get to them during this broadcast. And Brian's here with us today, and I'm going to hand it over to him. He'll summarize what we did last time and jump into the new content. Go ahead, Brian.
All righty, Derek, thank you. Good morning here from the West Coast. I want to do a quick recap of we made this into a two-part webinar presentation on electrical bid strategies and preparing to do a winning bid. So I wanted to do a quick recap on what we covered last time. There were really four main topics. The first is to review the drawings. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Just go through the drawings, whether you've got them in an electronic format or you've got them in a hard copy printout. Take a few minutes, go through each page, get a good handle on what the job is about. Uh, while you're doing that, you might want to highlight anything you think is critical as far as the job itself. I'm always looking for what kind of wiring method is going to be acceptable or allowed. This job, it says armored MC cable is okay inside the building. You may also want to look for other specs, like this one says minimum conduit size is 3/4. And then just go through the whole set of drawings, get a good idea of what the layout of the project is. The lighting here is pretty typical. There's the roof plan, there's a site plan. So just take a few minutes and go through each page, not this fast, but just take a few minutes and get a good overview of the job. The next thing you want to do is review the specs. Now, the specs might not exist at all. There may be just a few general notes in the drawings. On the little practice job that we use for training purposes, the specs are the second page. And this is not unusual at all, especially on maybe a medium-sized commercial job. There'll be just a page or maybe a couple of pages with the specifications on the project. And that's obviously important to take a couple minutes to look at that because it will affect your takeoff uh, and how you finalize your bid. And then we need to organize the takeoff. What I mean by that is, do we need to set up our takeoff so that we've got maybe a base bid and an alternate? Do we want to separate different parts of the project? Maybe we want to separate the site work from the building. Maybe we want to separate the lighting from the gear, from the feeders. In EBM, we do that in the job settings. Under job settings, these sections could be like a base bid and an alternate. Just going to switch to a different job real quick. I've got another job that's already got some setup here. So again, in the setup here, you may want to break out different areas of the job. Like this is a hotel, so we've got the common area, standard rooms, suites, corridor, site. You could also break out the job into a base bid and an alternate or two alternates or however many you need to do. And if you need a third level, you can create divisions. So there's this pretty unlimited to how do you organize the job, but it's best to do that before you start the takeoff. You can do it on the fly, but it's really better to have your your program, your job set up so that it's ready to go, and you, as you go through the takeoff, everything is just sitting there waiting for you. And then finally, when you're going through the drawings again, and when you look at the drawing, the overview of the job, determine what you need to get a quote on. Typically, we need to get a quote on lighting and gear. If there's lighting control, that's something you'll need to get a quote on. A lot of the time it's included with the lighting, but you'll need to do the takeoff on that so that you can get an appropriate quote. If there's any other special systems you need to get quoted, if there's things like generators, cable tray, bus duct, special systems, special materials like that that you may need to get a quote on. So get a good start on that so that you can get that information out to your suppliers in plenty of time to get a bid on that part of it. So those are the things we covered last time. Okay, so we're going to take off from here. The first next step is to prepare and review scope letter. A scope letter could also be called a proposal, but it's a basic overview of the job. So that would include a general scope of and a description of the job. If it's a 3 building uh, 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 school job, or if it's a store commercial building, a multi-story commercial building. You just want to get a good overview of the job that you can put into your scope letter. In that scope letter, you should also list every specific page that you're bidding from the drawings, E101, E102, E103, and really important is the dates, because the dates on the drawings are what you're bidding, and if it changes between the time you bid it and the time the project starts, then obviously you need to negotiate if there's been any changes that affect your pricing. Same thing with the specifications. You want to list that in your proposal. List, if it's a separate booklet like it is on large jobs a lot of the time, list the pages in the specifications that apply to your part of the job, the electrical, and again the dates. The dates are really important as far as specs. If it's one of the pages in the drawings, then again list that specifically. And finally, the exclusions. What are you excluding from your bid? Now, this is probably obvious why this is important to do it, because it's going to become part of what your bid is based on. But it's also really important to do this as early as possible, reasonably possible, to get your scope letter to whoever you're bidding to. They need to know the specifics so that when it comes bid time and they're comparing your price to somebody else's, they need to know what you've included and what you've excluded. Now, let me show you real quickly one of the form letters that's built into EBM, to Electrical Bid Manager, to do this. Where did my EBM screen go? Did I close it?
Nope. No, it was there. It was
there.
Right.
It is. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going to open up the original job I had here. We just call it a sample commercial job. This is one of the jobs that we put on the install, so you can reference it. So in the reports, you can get to this from a couple places. On the job total screen, there's an option for form letters at the bottom. And there's several of these templates that are built into the program. I'm going to pull up the one I've called Proposal 4. So this is an empty template initially. Now it brings in information from the job. You can see it's filled in the name of the customer, it's put in the date, today's date, and it's got a place to put in the drawing numbers, exclusions, etc. So from this point, you want to use this and give it its own name. Now I've already named this. I'm going to open up the template that we actually use for the job. Where'd it go? I thought I had it in here. Well,
is it not RTF? Maybe it's saved in a different format.
It's oh, there it is. That's it. Okay, so I saved this template under the name of the job, sample commercial job, and I filled in things again like the drawing numbers, the dates, 2 really important things, specifications, and addendums, and if there's any addendums, the date of the addendums. I don't know if you need to put in the engineer, the architect, or even the job site address isn't as critical. Those first 3 things are really important, though. If you want to get rid of something, you just hit Edit Template, and you get rid of the things you don't need, and go on from there. So at this point, you want to look real carefully, spend some time looking at the exclusions. This template has a list of other conditions, which you can define things that are appropriate for the job. But the exclusions are real important. If you're excluding things, there's a little typo there, I'll fix it. Here in California, we have something called Title 24. So a lot of that, a lot of those engineering calculations are sometimes not complete when you bid the job. So a lot of the contractors in California will exclude the Title 24 calculations. But if you're excluding things like temporary power, offsite storage, etc., premium time, Again, if you have EBM, you can look at the templates in here and get a good idea. You can modify the templates, and then you can modify them specifically for the job. So get your scope letter together fairly soon. You can be working on it as you do your bid. You don't have to finish it, but you want to get it off to your customers, at least a day or two ahead of the bid, so that they've got your details of what you're bidding. You don't need to put the price in at that point. If you email them the proposal, you can tell them that you will forward the price or call on the price or email the price appropriately before bid time. But it's a really good idea for them to have those details before you actually finalize your bid with the customer. So scope letter is a pretty important part of your process here, especially on the larger jobs, the more formal types of jobs you're bidding. So here's something that a lot of people, I don't think, pay a lot of attention to, is knowing your competition. Something simple like how many other electrical bidders are out there. You need to really know that before you spend a lot of time putting together a bid. It may also affect your bidding strategy, but more importantly, in my opinion, if you're bidding against more than 5 other competitors, I think you're wasting your time. When you've got that many other bidders, somebody's going to make a mistake. Somebody's going to be desperate to get the job. And that's just not a situation you want to be in. So know how many other electrical bidders there are. Now that may be a little difficult to determine at times, but you should be able to get a good handle on it. Ask whoever you ask to bid the job, how many other electrical contractors are bidding the job? Other things to keep in mind are, do you or somebody else have a last look at the bid? That's going to be real important. If it's someone you're bidding to that you've done a lot of work with, they may give you the last look. On the other hand, you don't want to be bidding against other people who you know from experience are getting the last look, because there's not a lot of reason to waste your time. Track your results with bidding against the competition. Just keep a simple spreadsheet on the percentage above or below the winning bid. If your bid was $105,000 and the winning bid was $100,000, then you were 5% high. Same thing on the opposite end. If you leave 5% on the table, you want to keep track of that. And it's real easy to add it up. Just keep a track of the percentages, and anytime you want to, you can add it up from the spreadsheet. Either you look back at the last 20 bids or look at all your bids and see what the averages are as far as how you're tracking below and above the winning bid. I think it's also good to keep an idea of the spread. What was the total, what was the highest price and what was the lowest price on the bid? When you're bidding jobs where the spread is crazy, there's a big spread, you got a $100,000 bidder and a $250,000 bidder, something's wrong there. Either people don't know what they're doing who are bidding the job, or the job is not very well defined. It may be a messy job. Look at the spreads on these jobs. That's a good thing to keep in mind when it comes to your strategy, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
So Brent, we have a question that's
Sure.
relative here.
What's a good number of bidders?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 5 or less. I just, like I said, 6 or more, you're going to spend a lot of time with low chance of winning and a high chance of having the bid go to somebody who makes a mistake, even if it's you. That's not a good situation. The more the bidders, the higher the chance that somebody who makes the biggest mistake or is really desperate for work. That's the other side of the coin. I don't think we see a lot of that these days. Most people are busy, but sometimes you just need to not bid the job. Sometimes that's the best strategy, is just not to bid the job. Look for something else that fits more into your type of work that you do the best, and with less competitors. So as a rough number, I would definitely stay away from jobs that have more than 5 bidders. Again, I understand sometimes you may have to do a bid for a good customer, even if there's half a dozen or more other bidders out there. They may need your number because you're the one they're depending on for their bid. But other than that, I would stay away from bids with a lot of competitors.
Thanks, Anthony.
So the other side of the coin is to know your customer. You know, what is it about the customer or customers you're bidding to that you want to keep an eye on? How many companies are you bidding to? You know, again, the more companies you're bidding to, the less favorable the job is. You know, it's always best to just be able to bid to one customer. Again, that's not something you can necessarily control, but I would prefer to bid to a customer who's the only company bidding the job. Even if I have to bid against other electrical contractors, I don't want to be bidding to 10 general contractors and each of them have 3 electrical contractors. Now you're really playing against the odds. And I think you need to ask them right up front, will they provide the complete bid results? At least the next closest bidder, higher or lower than yours. You need to have that information. And if they don't understand that, then that's really not fair. You need to know for future investment of your time what the results are in the past. And then similarly, you want to look at the success you've had with bids with these particular customers that you're bidding to, and the jobs. How well are the jobs going that you bid to that customer? You know, it doesn't help if you're getting all the jobs with one customer, but you're not making money. You know, that's not a good strategy either. So you want to look at the success that you're having with bidding with that customer and the performance on the jobs. How are those jobs doing?
All right, couple questions.
Sure.
All right. Can we input the result of the bid into EBM?
Um, you can No, there's no really place to do that. Again, I would just do it on a simple spreadsheet in Excel. Create a column where you show the name of the job, your bid, and the winning bid, and then you can have another column for the percentage over or under the winning bid. Um,
Okay. And
Let's see. Explain what last look means. Basically, that means you know that if you have last look, that means whoever you're bidding to is going to tell you, hopefully, honestly, uh, what the number is you need to be at to have the low bid. That's what we call last look. If somebody else has last look, then again, it's not an ideal situation because they can make a decision if they want to meet your price or not. So it's better to be in the position where you have last look from your customer. And that's it sounds a little bit shady, but quite frankly, if you've developed a relationship with the customer, they uh, they're happy with your work, you're happy with working with them, then that kind of thing is not out of line, in my opinion.
all right, I think that covered it for Sarah. She did just add or expand on last looks. I think you covered it pretty well. I think the tricky part is getting that relationship, that
Yeah,
reputation with your customer to where they will give you the last look, right? That's the
correct. And that's just based on your performance with the customer and your relationship with the customer, and it's always a good situation to have it. You can always say no, I don't want to go that low, but it's better than just blindly submitting a bid. Now, when you bid things, in a uh, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the institutional bids, it's sealed bid. You have to submit a bid. You don't know what anybody else's bid is, and you won't find out until after they've awarded the job what the other numbers were. But that's just in a situation where it's actually what they call a sealed bid, where you have to submit the job to a municipality or uh, someone that's going to not show the bids until they're finalized.
all right.
Here's one that people just ignore way too often. I talk about this in my estimating fundamentals classes. Make an estimate how long it's going to take you to do the job. You know, that helps you uh, uh, allocate your resources, but you need to be realistic too. I generally think you should allow 30 to 60 minutes per page to do the takeoff. A lot of variables come into play there. A page could take 10 minutes, it could take an hour and a half. But a typical commercial drawing, a typical commercial job, you ought to be able to take it off into half hour to 60 minutes. And takeoff means counting and measuring and inputting it into your program, assuming you have an estimating program. So that takeoff process, and be realistic. If you're busy at the office 8 to 10 hours a day, and you don't without with a lot of interruptions, that needs to be something that you plan for. Either gonna have to do it at nights, off hours, on weekends, or just schedule the time where you're not going to be interrupted in the office if it's going to be tight. But if you don't do that, what people will end up doing is they'll end up working till midnight the night before the bid. Obviously, that's not a favorable thing, but and also that's also when you're going to make the most mistakes. When you're tired and you're rushing and you're trying to you know prepare things the last minute, that's when you make the most mistakes. So budget your time and be realistic. Don't just take the attitude, but I'm sure we can get this done. If you're assigning the job to someone else, make sure that they're going to be given enough time to work on it with as few interruptions as possible. And then the final prep, again, you're going to have to put all the numbers together at the end. Usually that's going to take at least an hour or two. That final prep is finalizing your scope letter, finalizing your bid by putting in your quotes and any other costs like equipment rentals and subcontracts and that kind of thing. So that process is something you want to budget some time for also. And you may not be able to do that till the last day or afternoon before the bid.
Brian,
Yeah.
Kyle mentioned to me just now that regarding putting extra bid information
Uh-huh.
on into EBM, that you can always go back into the job and enter the actual bid price on the job total screen.
You can do that. I think that was more intended for the customer, the EBM user, to put in what they decided to bid. So maybe EBM says the job's going to be 195,000 with your normal markups and et cetera, and then you decide to bid the job for 190,000 or 200,000. That's a place to put the number that you actually decided to use, over or
Gotcha.
above or different from whatever EBM calculates. But you could use it that way too.
And this is probably something we should talk internally more about, but I guess you could change, like add something to the title that would give it a status, the job name.
There is a place in the job that you can tell the status, whether the job was pending, meaning you don't know who the winning bidder is, or whether it was accepted, meaning you are the winning bidder, or rejected, meaning you're not the winning bidder. So there is a place for that, but not for the amount of the other bids. I think that needs to be tracked separately.
Got it.
So what it all comes down to is determining your strategy. How aggressive do you want to be based on all these things we've talked about? How many other bidders are there? Is it a good type of job for your company? Do you need the work? Your success rate with similar jobs in the past. Not only your success rate, but your profitability. Obviously, the jobs that are more attractive, the ones you want to be more aggressive with, are the types of jobs where you've been more profitable in the past. So it really is important to be keeping accounting and job costing records of and looking at them, not just keeping them, but looking at where your profitability stands on different jobs. It may be that you're doing really well with the big jobs and not so well with the little jobs. Maybe you're doing really well with industrial work or et cetera, but you need to be looking at your profitability. And sometimes by gut feel, the kind of jobs your company is really good at, but that should determine how aggressive you want to be. And also your workload comes into play. If you really need the work, you might want to be more aggressive, but you don't want to do it just for that reason. But it's certainly a factor that comes into play when you're deciding how aggressive you want to be. Is do you need to keep some people busy, or are you really busy and you don't need the extra work? Both sides of the coin come into play, obviously. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the business, quite frankly, is keeping the workload flowing as well and as evenly as possible. And a lot of that's out of your control, but your bidding strategy can come into play a little bit there, where you can tweak things up a little bit or reduce your margins a little bit if you need to bring in some more work, and vice versa if you've got enough work going, you can keep a little bit better margin on the jobs. And finally, again, schedule the follow-up. I'm sure you all use calendars now. Schedule a follow-up call to the people you're bidding the job to. Don't wait for them to call you and tell you. They'll probably call and tell you're the low bidder. They probably are less likely to call and tell you that you missed the job by 1%. But you definitely want to schedule the call, put it on your calendar, get the results, ask for that information we talked about earlier. Who was the next closest bidder, what the total spread is, and then you can determine the percentage above or below the winning bid that yours was. And again, I think we've talked about this before, that follow-up is really important. If they're not willing to give you the results, then I think that should definitely affect your tendency to bid for those people in the future. And they understand that. You have to allocate your resources. It's not free to bid a job. It takes time. And any contractor or customer who doesn't understand that is really probably not the kind of company you want to be working for. Any other questions?
No new ones. Be sure to pop your questions over there. We'll be here for a few more minutes.
Yeah, I've been watching these questions. So
any okay, so let me talk a little bit about this here. I'm sure this isn't your first webinar for most of you, but we ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get some notifications when we do videos like this and any other videos that we post to our YouTube channel. I think we're just over 2,500 subscribers, so we have quite the audience now, and looking to grow that even further and share our training sort of that we do here and our discussions. And we're actually working on a new online one-on-one training course that we'll be announcing in May, or soon actually. That will be, you want to describe it, Brian?
Yeah, it's going to be what we call a takeoff lab, where you're going to take off a complete job from beginning to end. It'll be a one-on-one situation. You can use PlanSwift, or you can just do it the old school way and take it off the drawing. We can provide the job, or you can provide the job, but it's going to be a one-on-one session. I think the really important part about that class, as opposed to the other types of introductory classes and even the advanced classes, is you're actually working from a set of drawings. That's really where you find out how comfortable you are with the program and find out, the most efficient and effective way to do things is when you're actually doing the takeoff and putting it right into the program. And whether you do that electronically or manually, that's not as critical as that process of just having an instructor tell you go take off 100 duplex receptacles. When you look at the plans and see and count those receptacles and then figure out how to put that into the program, that's really where the learning process is totally complete, in my opinion.
All right. And excuse me, John asked if there's any EBM forums or groups, and we don't have one right now. It's probably high time to reconsider kickstarting one. And we started one on LinkedIn years ago, and we just never really got much traction with it. But now that we have this platform to sort of advertise it, maybe we should go back to it. That way users can kind of share their strategies and ask questions there, and we can get to it. So thanks for asking, John, because that reminds me, I'll put it on my list for us to get going here internally.
Yeah, we did a classroom training in Austin last year. That was one I think he's referring to. So the classroom training is similar to what we do online. Obviously, it's in person. You also have the option of getting on-site training. I just signed up a customer up in New England for a couple weeks from now. Those are really effective sessions where we can, again, you're not only going through the program and learning all the different ins and outs and shortcuts and features and all that, but we always do at least some amount of takeoff from drawings. I think that's a really critical part of it. And then we find out, some people understood, things differently than other people in the office, so you get people on the same page. And if you need to customize things, that's really the best format for that. Again, that could be one-on-one online, or it can be a regular class like we're talking about with the Takeoff Lab, where we take off a complete set of drawings. And the ones we provide the drawings, it's a pretty complete job. It's got everything from, it's the one you saw at the beginning of the webinar. It's got site work, it's got fire alarm, it's got fixtures and distribution and everything that most commercial jobs would cover.
All right. And excuse me. Sarah asks how she can sign up for the one-on-one. You know, you can call our 800 number, or is there another slide at the end, Brian? Contact slide? Or is that the last one?
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. Or you can email us at the sales email address, and that's sent to a group of people that will get back to you about that, to give you a call or just share the information via email. Yeah. Covered that. All right.
Good questions today.
Oh, and Kyle came back and gave me another tip. I forgot to mention, you know, if you don't mind, when you watch one of our videos and you like it, you enjoyed the content, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps us get those videos out in front of more people. So to help support us a bit, we'd welcome your little additional click efforts. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll be back in May. So look for that email, or if you've subscribed to us, YouTube should remind you that, hey, Vision has a new live coming up. And then you can hit, I think, be notified or something on the upcoming live, and then YouTube will alert you before we go live, just an extra reminder. I know we get busy. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, everybody.